folks, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Natasha and I do book things here. Today's video is going to be my June wrap-up where I talk about all the books that I've read in June. June overall, a much better month than May. I know I just recently posted my May wrap-up where I read like 3 things, talked about life. I'm happy to tell you that I read 8 books in the month of June. Did much better than May in terms of reading, of course. So as I said, I read 8 books in the month of June. So that ended up being 2,702 pages, which is about 90 pages a day for the month. Here's the shocking thing, at least to me. All the books that I read, I always say I try to read like 3 2019 releases. Every single book I read this month were 2019 releases. I did not read my backlist at all. I did not get a Stephen King in. I just read 2019 releases and that was that. The 8 books that I read, 4 books were arcs. That's something new to my channel as well. Obviously bringing in a lot from BEA, BookCon. I'm trying to make my arcs my priority because I feel like, you know, giving a media pass, it's sort of my responsibility to read the arcs, and if I'm given an opportunity like that, I'm going to sort of do my duty and read them. Star ratings. So I had 1 2.5, 1 3-star, 1 3.5, 2 4.5s, and then 3, it says 5 5s. I had 3 5-star books that I loved this month. So overall about a 4.1 for the month in terms of star ratings, which is really good as well. 4 of them were YA, 4 of them were adult, so split 50-50 there. And then my genres were 3 contemporary, 1 mystery, 1 non-fiction, 2 romance, and a thriller. So that made up my month. To it, I'm gonna go from my lowest rating all the way up to my 5-star book so we can end on a good note. And yeah, so let's get into it. The first book I rated 2.5. For me, a 2.5 star is like an average book. Didn't really take me anything past an average book, but I didn't absolutely hate it. The first one I have here is an arc. This book did come out in June, so it is already out. This is The Gone Dead by Chanel Benz, and this book is a mystery book where the girl goes back to her small town where her father had died 30 years ago. In this, she goes back, discovers the layers of racism that her father dealt with, being a black poet, and the secrets of this town and what happened to her dad and things as it progresses. The subject matter I found really interesting, you know, the talks about race in the South and being on different properties that was like, you know, slave owners' properties and stuff like that. However, the writing just didn't really take me anywhere. There wasn't anything in this for the mystery that I didn't see coming, and it was just sort of predictable and average. I will mention, if you are interested in this book, just to be mindful that there is a trigger warning for violence towards animals in this, and it was sort of startling and I didn't care for it. Yeah, like I just found the writing for this to be very simply laid out. I liked a little bit of more mystery in there. There was a little bit at the beginning when she sort of goes back to this property and there's some, like, you know, sound and stuff like that, but I thought it would be more of a thriller, where this is more of a sort of laid out mystery. So the next one I have here, I rated 3 stars, which is a little bit above average. This is another arc as well. This is The Confusion of Laurel Graham by Adrian Kisner. This book is everything I like in a book, so I thought, but it was just told very simply. So this follows a 17-year-old girl who is obsessed with bird watching and nature photography, so she wants to be like the next like top nature photographer. Love that. And then she has a really close-knit relationship with her grandmother, who is also a bird watcher. In this, there is some turmoil that happens with that, and it sort of follows it. But my main issue reading this book was the fact that if you are not somebody who knows a lot about bird watching already, you're gonna get lost because they mention a new bird every like 30 seconds. While it's interesting, I feel like it's a little bit too niche. Like seriously, if you like bird watching, pick this up, you'll probably like it. I know a basic amount about birds and I was like, oh, okay. Also, in parts of this, I thought it might take a magical realism spin, but it kind of didn't, but it kind of played with it, but then it didn't. And I would have liked to have seen it go that far. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say without really spoiling this. I love a grandmother relationship in a book, one of my favorite things. I feel like that was the strong part of this book, but everything else was just, again, very simply explained, or was just too heavy on the birds. So this is another book that is currently out, came out in June. Next is a book that I rated 3.5 stars, which is yet another arc. Unfortunately, not my most highest things that I rated this month, but that's okay. This one is I Want to Be Where You Are by Christina Forrest, and this is a YA book where a girl really badly wants to be a dancer, and well, is a dancer, and she really wants to go to this audition. So she hops in a car with a neighbor, and it ends up being a road trip book. I didn't realize going into this that it was going to be kind of a road trip book, but I really liked it. Again, this book is told very simply. There's not a whole lot going into it. It's short, it's a fast read. I think if you're somebody who really likes the idea of dancing in dance school and auditions and stuff like that in ballet, you might really like this. But for me, I kind of went into it just, you know, expecting just a light fluffy book, and I kind of got a light fluffy book. There wasn't a whole lot in this to really like super get me. The road trip parts of it were fun, but also pretty stereotypical. You know, there's a little bit of cars breaking down, there's a little bit of drama, pretty much everything you get in a road trip, but then also mixed in with dancing and ballet. Ended up giving it a 3.5 just because I like thoroughly enjoyed it, but you know, it was also not my favorite, which is why it's not a 5. Because these two are 4.5s and then the last 3 are 5s. So these are books that are very nearly at the top of my list, you know, of stuff that I read this month. First one I have here, one of my most anticipated books of the year, is Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered by Karen and Georgia, or My Favorite Murder if you guys aren't familiar. It is currently and has been my favorite podcast for a real long time. I know some people are turned off about like a true crime comedy podcast, but in actuality it's just the way that they explain these stories in a lighthearted way makes it more makes it more easily digestible for those who have a lot of panic and anxiety about true crime. So that's why they sort of went with My Favorite Murder. It's not like their favorite murder and they're like, haha, it's so funny. It's just told in a more comedic way. Anyway, but this is their sort of how-to guide on how to stay sexy and don't get murdered, which is their sort of saying. I did have one slight issue with this, I will say. I know a lot of people are pretty polarized on liking or disliking this. I read it alongside the audiobook, which I think is a must listen. It's told by both Karen and Georgia in the audiobook, and it's a little bit different than the podcast because they are reading off script for the audiobook. I really enjoyed Karen's parts of this. I don't know if it came with age or what it is because Karen's a little bit older, but Karen's parts in this were much better written than Georgia's, and Georgia's I feel didn't really tell a sort of linear narrative. She does end up repeating herself quite a few times in this book. However, that being said, as a fan of the podcast, I feel like I just was gonna like this anyway. Let's get real. And the only reason why it's not a 5 is because I found it being pretty repetitive in Georgia's parts. I did feel a lot of feels, and like I said, if you're a big fan of the podcast, this is a must read. You should read it. You're gonna like it. If you have no idea what the podcast is about, you're probably gonna hate this. That's fine. I would definitely say if you're interested in the podcast, give it a listen. I'd say listen to it for at least a couple months before, you know, you might want to pick this up. Really nice way to support something that I have listened to since episode 3. So, gave this a 4.5. Not perfect, just because, I'll be honest, not the best writing. And I don't read a lot of nonfiction, so it was nice getting my like toes back into that. So I might actually continue that streak throughout the summer by listening or reading a few more nonfiction. So there's that. The next 4.5 star is a book that is coming out really recently. When I'm filming this, it is the 1st of the month. This comes out tomorrow. So, you know, trying to get on top of my arcs, not really doing a great job of it. It is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, and this was really good. Really enjoyable. So this is following the story of Jules, who is apartment sitting for this really well-known bougie apartment building complex in New York. This book gave me strong New York vibes, which is really nice. She basically is apartment sitting so that they have the appearance of keeping this apartment full of people, and so there's a rule. So she is supposed to apartment sit for 3 months. She's not allowed to bring any outside guests in. She needs to stay in the apartment every night, and some spooky things happen. Now, I must say, was I completely shocked at things that happen in this? No, but one thing I will say, about halfway through, Riley Sagar does an amazing job of really making you believe that every single thing that is happening in this book is creepy, every single person we encounter is untrustworthy, and let me just tell you, there's just moments where I'm like, this is gonna get spooky, and I wish it would have sort of taken me more, like, I don't want to say, like, cheesy horror vibes. I did like how it ended, no spoilers, but I kind of wanted that, like, more of a jump scare, because it felt like the first half was like building you up to a jump scare, but I liked the way that it went. There is a reference to American Horror Story in this, so I stan. Riley Sagar did mention that, because it was giving you a little bit of like American Horror Story hotel vibes, but it's obvious that that influence is in here. Say if you like sort of American Horror Story hotel, if you really like true crime, like Elisa Lam, like what's that hotel? You guys know what I mean. The haunted one in New York. You guys know what hotel I'm talking about. The one in the Elisa Lam, like, investigation. If you like just that sort of, like, secretive apartment, but also a little bit of celebrity thrown in, this is quite good. I really liked it, and I thought it was interesting how it wrapped up, but I really just wish it had a little bit more of, like, jump scary moments, which would have been a 5 for me. This shirt is really itchy. Ugh. Last 3 books that I have here are all 5 stars, and yep, that's, I'm just gonna start with them. Okay, most horny a book has made me in a really long time. That is Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. This follows Georgie, who is a kid's clown living in a small town with her brother Steven. No, not with her brother, but like around her brother Steven. Now listen, I understand that this is a contemporary romance book. Georgie is a clown living in a small town with a brother named Steven. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, that Fix Her Up is a It or Stephen King fanfiction. But anyway, this is a romance book. Georgie, who is trying to sort of like make herself known in her family. Her family flips houses and has like a business flipping houses, and then along comes Travis, who is an ex-baseball star who is known as like Two Bat Travis because of his whoop. Let me tell you, there's some good descriptions of his ding-a-ling and fantastic sexy times that involve his ding-a-ling or not, and yeah, it was delightful. I know some people don't like how Travis refers to her as baby girl. Well, that shit got me going, so I'm here for it. I was there for it. Yeah, it gave me the tingles and I liked it a lot, so okay, that's 5 stars. Alright, next 5 star, again, really, no surprise. I'm just ashamed that it took me this long to read it, is Red, White, and Royal Blue. I don't know how else to describe this because everyone has talked about this forever now. It is a romance book between the son of the first female president of the United States and also essentially a prince of the monarch, English monarch, Prince Harry. And they have a friendship that turns into a romance, and it's fucking great. It's delightful. It's also hot, it's also sexy, and I loved the entire cast of characters. I liked the story. I liked it a whole lot. It's one of the better books that I've read. You know, I'll be honest, like, this is a 5 star just based on my downstairs tingles. This is a 5 star based on downstairs tingles and also story and also characters. So, you know, both 5 stars in their own right, but this is the better book, let's get real. This is better sex, this is a better book. If you're comparing the two, which I don't see why we need to, but if you guys are wondering where my 5 stars are coming from, that's why. Yeah, I think that this is amazing and everybody should read it. Okay. The last book that I have here for the month that I gave 5 stars to is just a different story, a bit more of a hard-hitting one. That is I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver, who I did get to meet them at BookCon, although didn't really get to talk, but definitely like saw them and knew who they were and went, you wrote that book. I picked this up immediately after returning from BookCon in BEA and just knew I had to read it right away, and I read it and loved it. This is a bit more of a hard-hitting one. It does follow Ben and their story coming out as non-binary to their parents. Their parents don't take that information well, and then it follows their story going to a new school and meeting new people and deciding whether or not they want to come out as non-binary to all those other people as well. And this is the first time that I have read about a non-binary character as a main character in a book before, and I just thought it was fantastic to see that on the page, especially with this book being own voices. I just absolutely love the sibling relationship between Ben and Hannah, also the relationship between Ben and Nathan, and just the different ways that support can happen when something really shitty happens. I think it was a good look at that, and I just really enjoyed Ben as a character. I just thought it was a beautiful, simple, I don't want to say slice of life, but just, you know, a snippet in time for this character's life, and I thought it was really enjoyable. I kind of teared up at parts for sure that were just a little bit more difficult to read, and yeah, I'm just can't help but feel really proud of this book. You know, I don't know. It's just, I just feel proud of it, that's all. And I don't know how else to explain that. It's just when you see something you haven't really seen on the page before, and it's just so well represented, and also own voices, you can't help but feel a little bit proud. I'm getting misty. I read a lot of like wonderful LGBTQIA+ books this month with different characters in it. Be honest, I didn't necessarily have a TBR going into Pride Month for it, but I'm so happy that the books I did pump in had representation in there, and it was just like, more of it please. I need more. Anyway, so those are the 8 books that I read in the month of June, all of which were pretty dang good, and I'm feeling pretty proud of myself. It was definitely, you know, a fun way to get back into reading as a hobby again. Trying to balance everything else, and reading is just good. I just fell back in love with reading this month, and that's awesome. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree, disagree with any of my opinions. We can open up that conversation. Love doing that. And let me know, I don't know, how y'all are doing. How many books maybe you read in the month of June. Whatever you're excited for. And until my next video, I'll talk to all of you soon.